For Marvel's ongoing Amazing Spider-Man, the publisher has only a few issues left under the current creative team of Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. In issue 56, author Zeb Wells is trying to wrap up as many loose threads as possible, featuring the rise of the new Kingpin of New York, known as Tombstone, who's trying to exert his influence in nearly any way possible. My name is Araco Braddock, and today, let's go ahead and see if Spider-Man can stop his longtime foe in the latest issue of 56. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel. Amazing Spider-Man 56 is still written by Zeb Wells, featuring artwork from John Romita Jr. We have inks from Scott Hanna, colors from Marcio Menyz, letters from VC's Joe Caramagna, and the cover for the issue is still illustrated here by the usual creative team of John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna, and Marcio Menyz. I think it's so striking to see the way John Romita Jr. is able to capture all the animosity between Tombstone and Peter Parker. This has been building since almost the first issue of the series and was reinforced so naturally through the most recent Gang War storyline, which was an incredible way that Wells was able to organize the disparate gang-focused villains across the Spider-Man franchise. I want to kick off our review by focusing in on one of the first scenes over from author Zeb Wells. It actually introduces us to the location of Mozambique, focusing in on an interesting conversation between both Tombstone and Wilson Fisk. I love the characterization that Zeb Wells has been able to implement for Tombstone and the way that Tombstone is able to kind of fight back against Kingpin, even though Kingpin is his current employer, is such a joy to experience over in the issue. There's also so much tension on these opening pages that's captured so wonderfully from John Romita Jr. I feel like John Romita Jr.'s work is so stylized in the space of comics that we really need a specific place and opportunity for him to evoke some of his pencils, and I think issue 56 is just a phenomenal way to realize his really fantastic facial expressions and the way that they play off of really interesting characters like Wilson Fisk or Kingpin himself. In the next scene, Peter Parker is finally able to get reintroduced to the character of Randy Robertson. Randy has been utilized across so many issues of The Amazing Spider-Man, especially extending towards that gang war arc that we just most recently discussed here. Also, learning about some of the backstory and Randy's mysterious secret brings him directly over to Robbie Robertson in a later scene within the scope of this individual comic book issue. Wells has been working with this character for such a long time, and I feel like he's really able to reap some of those rewards in issue 56 of the main series here. Also, talking about following up on some interesting supporting players, the next scene actually covers Kareem and the White Rabbit, who are actually working to exert some of Tombstone's influence across New York City. This meeting is cut short, of course, by none other than your favorite neighborhood wall crawler, Spider-Man himself. Spider-Man is able to intercept this scene and actually undermine a little bit of what Tombstone is looking to accomplish in the first place. Issue 56 of The Amazing Spider-Man was really nicely able to wrap up this incredibly epic fight between Peter and Tombstone with huge ramifications for the entire comic book series. This has already been teased on some of the future covers for Amazing Spider-Man, but watching it play out on the page was incredibly cathartic for me to witness here at a distance. Also, I really appreciate how Zeb Wells was able to pace some of the narrative in this comic book. It feels like each and every scene has some big, massive consequence for the character of Tombstone that will hopefully be uncovered as the issue gets later into this really dark arc over on The Amazing Spider-Man. So at the end of the day here, I am just in awe of what Zeb Wells was able to accomplish between this really harrowing relationship with Tombstone and Peter Parker seated across this fascinating run over on The Amazing Spider-Man. As time has gone on, I've come to appreciate this relationship more and more and more, and it feels like John Romita Jr. is just the perfect accomplice to threading some of Zeb Wells' additional work. I just want to give a quick disclaimer here. This was a massive issue of Spider-Man, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to cover some of the backup stories. On our previous live stream, I took a look at some of those additional pages, and I love what I saw from characters like She-Hulk and Paul featured in the background as well. Well, that's going to go ahead and do it over for our review on the Amazing Spider-Man 56. Thank you so much for coming along for the ride. We'll be back to cover the next issue of the series and the beginning of the Joe Kelly run of Amazing Spider-Man as soon as it's published. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.